What's going on, YouTube? So about 2 weeks ago, we brought you guys a full review of the 2020 RAV4 and the changes this year. But now we're taking a look at what is undoubtedly the biggest change, and that is this brand new trim called TRD Off-Road. Of course, we do want to take a moment to specially thank our friends at Frankfort Toyota for giving us access to what is now the top RAV4 trim. And if you're in the market for any new Toyota, make sure you stop by their dealership or visit them via their website, which we provided a link to in the video description. So with that all said, let's see if the TRD RAV4 is the model to get. So first, checking out the exterior styling, the TRD does have several differences from most of the other RAV4 trims. Now I say most because it does share a lot of exterior elements with the Adventure trim, like the fascia. It looks a lot more rugged, with a more squared off grille, different trim across the bottom, and then LED fog lights that set up a lot higher. As far as the other lighting, the headlights are fully LED just like on all the other RAV4 trims. And down below, the ground clearance also remains the same at 8.6 inches. Moving to the side, like the Adventure trim, the TRD also has the ability to get an optional white roof for $500. What you're looking at here is the magnetic gray and white combination, which is a TRD exclusive. Around back, there's not much different from the other RAV4s, except for a body-colored panel along the bottom bumper. We also have the optional blacked out badges for a stealthier look. But overall, the TRD Off-Road definitely looks the part and is the toughest looking RAV4 on the road. Now the other big area focused on for this TRD are the wheels. These are exclusive 18-inch alloys that are both lighter and more rigid. And then wrapped around them are special Falcon Wild Peak all-terrain tires that are severe snow rated. From here you can also see the unique red coil springs for the specially tuned suspension. Moving on to the mirrors, they are always finished in metallic black, and you also have heating and blind spot monitoring. And as far as all the other safety features, like every RAV4, the TRD does come with the entire Toyota Safety Sense 2.0 suite as standard equipment. Finally, the last thing to mention on the outside is that TRD and Adventure trims can tow up to 3,500 pounds, which is 2,000 pounds more than all the other trim levels, as well as most vehicles in the class. Well, anyways guys, that hits everything different on the outside. So now let's see what's changed for the interior and the way it drives. So of course, since the RAV4 TRD is now the top trim of the RAV4 lineup, you will find standard smart entry and their typical Toyota key fob here. Remote start is available via the Inform app for 6 months free. Now of course, to get inside the vehicle itself, all you gotta do is just grab the handle and it will open up. And then checking out the cabin here of this new TRD off-road model. Basically what you're looking at is kind of a mixture of the limited features and some of the styling from the Adventure trim. There is only one way to equip this cabin, and that's what you see here, your black Softex faux leatherette, and then you also have some red accents in the stitching and over there on the dash. Now turning over here to your door trim, you get the upscale version from the limited model, so that means you have a leatherette material that covers all through here, and then a nice soft touch area at the top with some color contrast stitching across it. As far as your windows, they are one-touch automatic on all four. Got some special floor mats. And then coming to the seat here, it is 8-way power adjusting with 2-way lumbar support. Now, as you can tell, these seats are unique to this TRD off-road model, so you have kind of a tire tread looking pattern in here, which looks really neat. Also a little bit different headrest with a special embroidered TRD right through there. Now, as far as the fundamental elements of this cabin, it is mostly the same as any other high-end RAV4 model. So what you'll be looking at is a soft touch dashboard across here. Then through the middle you have this leatherette material with some special red color contrast stitching for the TRD model. Coming down here, this is hard touch. And then, like I said, you have these special red accents that run through these areas here just to give it a little bit of a unique look. Of course, you do have push button start. Now, taking a look here at your gauges, this is the premium setup from the Limited. So you've got a 7-inch multifunction display right there in the middle. Now, as far as the information includes, it is pretty much the same as the 4.2-inch one on the lower end models, but of course everything looks better here. You do also have a little graphic here for your torque vectoring all-wheel drive system. Now, coming back to the steering wheel, of course you do have electric power assisted steering, and it is nicely leather wrapped here on the TRD. As far as some of the features, we do have rain sensing wipers. Those are part of the optional weather package, as is the optional heating, which I definitely have on a day like this. Now, as far as interior storage, it does have the same amount as other RAV4s, which is to say an excellent amount. So starting in your center console here, it is quite large, pretty deep, and you do have a felt lining down at the bottom. Inside you will also find 2 charging USB ports. Up in front of that we have 2 really deep cup holders with that cool tire tread texture in the bottom. And then up here in the front we have another really large bin. As you can see, this also doubles as a wireless phone charger. That is an option. And then you have another USB and a 12-volt outlet as well. And then there is that little storage area also. Now, coming back to your shifter here, it is just a regular shifter, so you pull for drive, bump over here to the left to shift manually. Sorry about the parking sensors, they're registering snow right now, so they think I'm about to ram something. Now, when we go into reverse, what you'll see on this model is our optional bird's eye camera system. This comes in the technology package. Otherwise, you would just get the standard backup camera with active trajectory. But as you can see, this does have both active trajectory, front and rear parking sensors, as well as different views. And it does have a cool feature called perimeter scan, which I'll activate here. So as you can see, it basically circles around the entire car to give you a really good sense of everything that's around you. And you can even change certain settings, like changing what your car looks like, what perspective you look at it for. So this is really a very neat system, and it is optional here on the TRD off-road. Now, of course, as our off-road focused model, we do have a lot of different settings here for off-roading. So you've got your drive modes up here at the top. You have mud, sand, rock and dirt as well. You also have snow, and you have hill descent control. Now, moving on up here, we have the dual zone automatic climate control setup. It is the same as other RAV4s, so you just adjust with these big knobs and physical buttons right here. You will also have standard 3-stage heated seats, and then when you go for the weather package, you'll get 3-stage ventilation as well. Alright, now that brings us up here to our audio system. Now, for 2020, the Limited now comes standard with the upgraded JBL sound system. However, for this TRD Pro, you still have the 6-speaker sound system as the standard option. And then you can add the JBL sound system, which is what we have right here. So we'll go ahead and take a sample of that. overall sound quality of this system is excellent. Alright, so now we're up here at our Entune 3.0 system. I'm just going to be real brief about this because it is the same as it is in other Toyota models. But as far as what you'll notice for this TRD, you do have standard navigation. This is Toyota's dynamic navigation system, and it is very nice. As you can see, upgraded graphics, and it's very responsive. The other new and important thing for 2020 is that we can click here and you can see projection. This now includes both Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, as well as Amazon Alexa for 2020. Well, that's really all I wanted to talk about here in this video. However, we do have a very detailed, dedicated tech help video available for those of you who want to learn more about it. A link to that video is provided in the description. Now moving on up here, we do have Toyota's brand new rear camera mirror. RAV4 right now is the only model that has this, and it is optional on this TRD model via the tech package. Of course, you do also have your home-link universal remotes underneath of it as well. And then turning around here, you will see we have the moonroof. This is included standard on the TRD as well as most of the RAV4 models. However, you cannot add the panoramic moonroof like you can add to the limited trim. Alrighty guys, so that pretty much sums up everything in the interior for this TRD RAV4. So now I'll go ahead and hand it off to Mason, who will check out all the back areas.
Alright, so before we get back here, I do want to mention that I do have a cold, so be a little patient with me and my voice. I am pretty hoarse. But turning over and looking at the rear door trim itself, on this TRD off-road model, this is the top-end model, so of course you do have the same materials as the front. So all of this area is leatherette with a soft touch plastic on the top with stitching. Down below that you do have some bottle storage. And getting inside here, you will find pretty nice features here in this TRD off-road model. So all of the trims do have these nice vents except for the base LE, so that will continue here. And down below that you will also find 2 smart charging USB ports. Now, one feature that I do want to mention is that this TRD off-road model cannot get heated rear seats. I found that to be pretty interesting because, especially with this car's price point of over $41,000, it cannot have heated rear seats like the Limited can, but that's just a little bit thing to note if you are cross-shopping this with the Limited trim. And here in the center we do have your fold-down armrest, cup holders inside, up top assist grip coat hook, and some lighting. Now, as far as the rear legroom is concerned, just like I said in the regular RAV4 review, there is plenty of space. So you have about 6 inches of legroom behind my knees in the seat back, adjusted to Drew's position. And the technical measurement is 38 inches of rear legroom and 40 inches of rear headroom, which is on par with most in the class. It's right on par with like the Nissan Rogue. However, it is a little bit less than the Honda CR-V if you're cross-shopping it with that. Now, I do also want to mention, I did fail to mention this, but the seats do recline in this model. Now, the seats also fold 60-40 split, so all you have to do is grab this little handle, and they do fold right down. Now, coming around to the tailgate, you are going to find another one of those interesting missing features for this TRD model. Now, of course, the tailgate itself is power. However, it cannot have the hands-free option that the Limited can have. So to open it, just grab this button under the lid, and it does open right up. And once inside the RAV4's trunk, you're going to find the same amount of space as you would in any other trim level of the RAV4. So you're going to find 38 cubic feet of space behind the second row seats, and that expands to 70 cubic feet of space with the seats folded. Now that does put it a little bit behind its main competition like the Honda CR-V and Nissan Rogue. However, it's not behind by much, and it's pretty much the same as most of the other rivals in the class. Now, of course, it is also finished very nicely back here. So you do have a cargo cover. Off to the side, you have some lighting, as well as a USB port. And one thing that I am noticing, as opposed to the XLE Premium we did before, it does also have a household style outlet back here, a storage cubby, and underneath of the floor, we do have a spare tire. Now over here on the passenger seat, it is manually adjusting even on this high-end trim. And in front of the passenger, you do have some more storage right here. The glove box is also dampened, however it is not felt lined or illuminated. And up top, we do have a sun visor with a mirror and light. And it does also detach and has an extension in the end. Well guys, that pretty much sums up all the rear features of this fully loaded RAV4 TRD off-road. So now let's go ahead and take it out on the road and see how it performs there.
So getting up to speed in the TRD off-road RAV4. Of course, this is exactly the same engine as you'll find in the other RAV4s. They did not change it out for TRD duty here. So we're still looking at the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder with 203 horsepower. However, like I just mentioned, I guess about a couple weeks ago when we reviewed the XLE RAV4, power really feels plentiful. This is one of the more powerful feeling offerings in the class as far as when you're talking about a base engine, which is what this is, of course. So it definitely feels pretty spry. Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of the power. It's really quite good. Also, the 8-speed automatic transmission, it is unchanged here in the TRD, and like I said in the previous video, it's really an excellent transmission. It shifts seamlessly. You really can't feel it or anything like that. And definitely, to me at least, seems like a notable upgrade from continuously variable transmissions that you get from a lot of the competition. So, you know, if that's something that bothers you, definitely consider that when making your decision.
You know, and another thing that I do want to mention here, just kind of cruising along, we're going about 40 miles an hour. I'm definitely not noticing any differences. If there is a difference, I think it's probably for the better in terms of ride quality for this TRD off-road model. You might expect that it might be a little bit more harsh or a little bouncy or whatever with this TRD model, but it really is not. Just cruising down the road, it's still extremely comfortable. Of course, you have these really nice seats. I like the leather. They're very attractive looking and they sit very nice. So you're still going to have that great ride quality here in this TRD model, so don't expect it to be sacrificed here.
Really, I think the most important thing that I can tell you about this TRD version is that it pretty much drives the same as the standard versions. So what I said a couple weeks ago does definitely still apply for this TRD. Including things like the excellent steering and handling. Like I had mentioned in that review, really the move to the TNGA platform makes just an absolute huge difference from the previous generation. It kind of has transformed this into one of the smoothest driving or best handling models in the class. It really just corners flat. You have very responsive, very linear feeling steering. And it really is very pleasant to drive.
And as far as the drivetrain, this TRD off-road model does come standard with all-wheel drive. And it's actually not just the standard all-wheel drive system, it's Toyota's torque vectoring all-wheel drive. Now, if you want that, you can also get that on the limited all-wheel drive, but it is reserved for those top two trims of the RAV4. And basically why it's so exclusive is that it's actually a class exclusive feature, and it can send 50% of the power to the rear wheels and then further split that power between the left and right wheel. So like I mentioned, that is a class exclusive feature, and it's going to be useful for stuff like today. The snow's out, it's all cold and freezing and stuff, so it's going to be a very useful system for you and your family to integrate.
And as the off-road model,
yeah,
of course, for off-roading situations, that is a practical thing to have on board, and definitely increases the capability of this model.
And another good thing about that is that it doesn't really negatively impact your fuel economy too much. So you're still going to get really good fuel economy out of this model. It's rated at 25 city, 33 highway, 27 combined, which is pretty much class competitive, if not at the top end of the class with the all-wheel drive system.
So overall, definitely this TRD RAV4 drives very nicely. Like I said, really the best thing to conclude with is really just that it drives pretty much exactly the same as the standard RAV4, which I consider to be a good thing, and you still have the added capability that Toyota added. I would say it's probably a slightly more comfortable suspension out on the road. Of course, it is better off-road as well. So, as an overall package, you're just having only additions to the good driving dynamics of the standard model.
Alrighty, so as you might know by now, the TRD Off-Road is the most expensive RAV4 you can get in the lineup now. So that starts, and it does come standard with all-wheel drive, so keep that in mind, but its starting price is $35,180. Now this particular one does have pretty much every option package available on the TRD Off-Road trim. So we do have the TRD Off-Road Weather Package for $1,015, the Premium Audio Dynamic Navigation System with JBL Audio for $1,620, the TRD Off-Road Technology Package for $1,950, the two-tone paint for $500, blackout emblems for $65, as well as mud guards for $129. And then finally, when you add the destination charge of $1,120, this particular model as equipped comes in at $41,579, which is definitely the most expensive RAV4 that you can get your hands on. It's definitely going to be more expensive than like even a limited with all the options. And it definitely places it as one of the top most expensive offerings in the class. Well guys, we hope you enjoyed watching the first in-depth look at the all-new trim level of the RAV4, the TRD Off-Road. Please hit those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.